before we start into any of those, we have to give the quick daily update of where we're standing, how we got here, and really what's been happening in the last 24 hours. So as everyone recalls, we're talking about the massacre that started on the 7th of October. 3,000 terrorists infiltrate Israel and carry out really one of the most brutal attacks that have been seen in recent history, murdering, raping, burning alive, decapitating 1,400 people in 30 different locations along Israel's border with the Gaza Strip. Civilians, babies really put into ovens and tortured as their parents looked on. Really terrible sights that really were particularly heinous and deserve an equivalent response. From that, Israel started out obviously on a terrible footing. Israel was, as we all know, surprised by the attack. Part of that misconception of the Oslo Accords that we can rely on the other side and possibly placate them, and so they won't attack us. But really, that's not a reality that we've seen either with the Palestinian Authority in Judea and Samaria, and certainly not with Hamas in the Gaza Strip. In addition to those murdered, thousands injured, we also had an unspecified number of people taken hostages. Israel is very cautious with the number of hostages it says is being held by Hamas. Hamas, on the one hand, is not saying anything as to how many hostages it has. Israel, on the other hand, only releases statistics of incidences where we can confirm that the person that we're relating to is actually being held in Gaza by the terrorists. So at the moment, the number is standing at 239 people being held hostage in Gaza. Of them, there are dozens of foreign citizens who are also part of that whole equation, which is really part of the complexities that we'll discuss shortly. And within that as well, we're talking about people of all different ages. Some 18 people over the age of 75, and 35 people under the age of 18. Of them, 10 people under the age of 5, including little Kfir Bibas, who's just 9 months old. The hostage situation is one of the most complicated situations that we're dealing with at the moment, but deals and plays directly into the subject of Hamas's tunnels underneath the Gaza Strip, with the assumption and the understanding being that most of the hostages, if not all of them, are being held somewhere in that labyrinth of tunnels underneath the Gaza Strip. And so how do we get to them? How do we secure the release? Is an Entebbe-style operation to heroically release all of the hostages something that's on the cards? Or is that situation a little bit more complicated even than a strike in a foreign country on hostile land, as was carried out as part of the Entebbe raid? Now, all of that is playing into the wider situation in the region, which includes Iran operating its different proxies, whether it be Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and the other Gazan terrorists on the one hand in the Gaza Strip, on our southern front, or Hezbollah in the north. Hezbollah in the north, as we've said on a number of occasions, has continued this really war of attrition with Israel on the north, constantly firing rockets, constantly firing anti-tank missiles. Hamas in Lebanon has also played a factor. Just a few nights ago, we saw Hamas in Lebanon firing 30 odd rockets in missiles into Israel. And so that's something which is also seen as part of this wider scale. Will Hezbollah, which really does have, compared to Hamas, Hezbollah is really a monster terrorist organization, even though Hamas in and of itself is terrible. Hezbollah is much more dangerous in that it has not only the rockets that we're seeing Hamas fire, it also has missiles. Now, what's the difference between rockets and missiles? rockets, when you fire them, you point them in a general direction, they shoot off and they fall wherever they fall. Now, Hamas has become particularly experienced, and they know how to exactly fire and place the rockets so that they reach certain targets, that they can really target them as they go with relative accuracy. Missiles, on the other hand, are these same warheads, but with the capability of pinpoint precision, which makes them so much more dangerous. While Hamas has not a small amount of long-range weapons, which in 2016, it was estimated that Hamas was holding more than 550 long-range missiles. That means missiles over the range of 50 miles and upwards to even 250 miles. It's estimated that Hezbollah has tens of thousands of similar rockets, of similar missiles, and that those missiles could be used really to target anywhere in Israel. And so we're seeing that Hezbollah's involvement in a war could be really much more dangerous, potentially, than Hamas. So, and they're all working under the Iranian instruction as to when to join the war, how to join the war, at what extent to join the war. And so at the moment, we're seeing Hezbollah somewhat holding back and only attacking the areas that are adjacent to our northern border. That could obviously change at any stage. And based on the decision of Iran and Hezbollah, there isn't really anything that Israel could do. What Israel is trying to, the message that Israel is trying to give over to Hezbollah is one of deterrence, with the IDF chief of staff saying just a few days ago that most of the targets that have been attacked in the Gaza Strip, or that could be attacked in the Gaza Strip from the air, have been attacked. And now the Air Force, which had only used not even its entire potential to rain havoc and attack the military targets in the Gaza Strip, that entire effort, with the exception possibly of the attack helicopters, could be now diverted to the northern arena, and Lebanon could be attacked extensively were Hezbollah to make that mistake and to join the fighting. On further away, which is partly a part of our up to the minute update for this briefing, on further away, we're seeing also the Houthis in Yemen, Iranian-backed, obviously, also joining in the war. A few days ago, they officially declared war on Israel. They've sent and fired some missiles already in our directions, even ballistic missiles. And today, what we were seeing just minutes before the start of the briefing was a UAV being fired, we assume at the moment, from Yemen towards Eilat, towards Israel's southernmost city, and they're hitting a target, not just any target, but a school. Thankfully, there was no one in the school, and there were no one was injured as a result of the attack. But as we were coming and preparing for the briefing today, there were pictures of the wing of this UAV being broadcast on Israeli television to show exactly what we were talking about. And again, the assumption is that we're talking about a UAV launched from Yemen and from that direction, rather than an attack coming from the Gaza Strip, and certainly not from Hezbollah. So we're seeing that whole regional proxies of Hezbollah of Iran, working on all different fronts, all part of this onslaught on Israel. In Judea and Samaria, as we've noted before, there is a high level of terrorism still going on. Fatal attacks carried out in the last few days, and continuous attacks throughout the period. That's something that has to be understood just really as luck, or some more believers would see the hand of God, have really brought about the fact that there have been no more fatalities, but the level of terrorism again warranted aerial strikes in Jenin, in that northern area of Jerusalem, of the West Bank, that is under the control of the Palestinian Authority, in order to target Palestinian terrorists. This morning, the Palestinians reporting 7 people killed, many of whom the number has differed so far, so I won't give an exact number, actually members of the Palestinian security apparatus. That means people employed by and receiving a salary to work as anti-terrorism activists for the Palestinian Authority, but were really actively themselves involved in terrorism. This isn't something which is new. This is something that we've seen and has been documented extensively. And so we're seeing that also developing situation constantly as we move along. In Israel, we've seen a relative amount of calm from the in general. There were fears that the Israeli Arab population, or some parts of it, as happened in 2021, would join the war, and we would see acts of terrorism, particularly in the mixed cities that we saw in 2021. Thankfully, that hasn't happened. Really, on the contrary, that's what we've been seeing. We have to take into account that there were many Israeli Arabs who were killed by the Hamas onslaught, and some Israeli Arabs who risked their lives to save the lives of Jews during that onslaught, and sometimes also paying with their own lives. So possibly that has been a calming influence within the Israeli Arab population, and definitely the scenes of the carnage and the torture. I'm sure it was also playing a not a small factor within that process. The responses of the Israeli Arab political echelon have been somewhat differing from people like Ayman Khatib, a member of Knesset, saying that she didn't necessarily believe that babies were kept decapitated just a few days ago, shamefully, as opposed to the head of her party, Mansour Abbas, saying that the scenes that he witnessed as part of this video that the Israeli government has been showing to both members of Knesset, members of foreign governments, and the international press, saying that the scenes there were horrific, and that they did not represent anything that Islam could certainly even accept, and certainly not condone. Now, that's the overview of the different arenas. As regards the specific developments of the last 24 hours, just regarding Gaza, and then we can discuss a little about the hostages and the tunnels in general. Yesterday, the IDF spokesman releasing evidence, really, and showing both from interrogations and from discussions, conversations with Hamas terrorists, that Hamas intentionally uses ambulances in order to carry out its terror activities. Now, this is obviously, as we know, really a double war crime, not only the terrorism itself, but the use and abuse of medical facilities and ambulances, which technically enjoy, or not even technically, that enjoy special protection under international law, unless they are abused for promoting the war effort and for supporting and forwarding the terror activities. Now, we're seeing, obviously, when you hear the reports of the international community talking about Israel, as they constantly distort the picture, intentionally attacking ambulances, as we saw just a few days ago. These ambulances aren't, they wear the outer garments of an ambulance, but in many cases they are there to support, they are there as part of Hamas's intentional use and abuse of international insignias and internationally designed protections for the purposes of transferring both weapons and terrorists. So that just as a general idea, when you hear this reports of the IDF intentionally attacking ambulances, you should just always be very cautious of those reports and know that if ambulances have been specifically targeted by the IDF, there is most likely evidence to support the fact that those ambulances were being used by Hamas as part of their war effort. The second update, which has to be credited to the organization Honest Reporting, was really mind-blowing this morning. According to the report, journalists from Gaza, people who are referred to as journalists from Gaza, who are in the employ, even ad hoc, of internationally accredited news agencies, including CNN and AP, were allegedly part of and embedded in the terrorist forces that carried out the October 7th massacre. What does that mean? That means that the terrorists had previously told these journalists what they were about to do. The terrorists had been clear that these journalists could come along. The journalists then documented the atrocities being committed, and in complete breach of any basic form of morality, and definitely of their journalistic duties, were there to document the atrocities, not report them, not to show them as something which was obviously a heinous crime against humanity, but rather there as part of that general propaganda effort of the terrorist organizations, and as I would fear, willing participants, albeit only as recorders in these atrocities.
I'm always.
So that's something we have to take into account. Let me just, Amir, let me just give you a quick update and tell you where we are, and then I'll bring you straight in, if I may. The second, and so that obviously is a tremendous source of concern, and if more substantiated, would obviously indicate that there was some serious media collaboration with the atrocities. We're joined now by Amir Avivi. Amir, what we've been discussing until now is a general update on the subject of what's going on in the war, mentioning the subject of the journalists, mentioning also the UAV that struck Eilat just minutes before we started the broadcast. And the last subject that I was about to address was the hostage situation, and the fact that the hostages are being held in, we believe, in the 500 kilometers of tunnels that Hamas has dug underneath the Gaza Strip. And that brings us immediately in. You're joining us exactly as we would hope, timing-wise, to really discuss that whole situation and the challenges of the Hamas tunnels underneath Gaza, what Israel can do about them, and how we can get into them, how we can destroy them, what we can do, how can we destroy some tunnels, and what other tunnels do we need to really go into with hand-to-hand fighting almost. Maybe you can give us a little bit of insight. Amir, just for our audience who didn't read his bio, was amongst other things the head of the engineering department for the Southern Front, heading of the engineering school. That Amir, as a brigadier general, that was most of his career was dealing with these types of issues, and with specific expertise in the Hamas tunnels. So Amir, maybe you can give us a little bit of your insights on the subject, please.
Yeah, so I can say that the issue of the tunnels, we have been dealing with that from basically from 28 years ago. We started dealing with tunnels. I myself uncovered more than 30 tunnels on the Egyptian border between Rafah in Gaza and in Egypt. Since then, gradually we have developed capabilities, but the first time we really understand that we need to deal very seriously with tunnels is in 2014. 2014, we had more than 30 tunnels that crossed from Gaza into Israel. By the way, tunnels that went into the towns with the intention to enable Hamas to storm the towns like they did now, but through the tunnels, not through the fence. And we understand that we need to destroy these tunnels and that we need to attack simultaneously on all the 60 kilometers of the Gazan border and destroy simultaneously all the tunnels that cross to Israel. When we went to this operation, we lacked technology, we lacked techniques, we lacked enough equipment to do it simultaneously. And this is why Protective Edge, this operation took 51 days. And even then, it wasn't perfect. And since 2014, there is an understanding in the army that we need to take this much more seriously. And there is a whole buildup of capabilities in the ground forces, in the Air Force, to deal with the tunnels. We deal with technologies that will enable us to detect them. The first thing you need to do is be able to detect that there is a tunnel. So we really made huge gap in the ability to detect them, developed very clever and sophisticated technologies, and we are now much better at that, at the ability to detect tunnels. The other thing is how to understand what's in the tunnel. Robots, canine, dogs, different techniques of how to really learn about what is going on in the tunnels. The other thing is how to destroy them. We developed a whole different set of capabilities. Some of them are embedded in the infantry, some in the armored forces, most of them in the combat engineer battalions. 1 second. Bye. And also the top unit, Yalom, which is a special operations unit of the combat engineers, that has a whole unit inside it devoted for warfare inside tunnels. And the army starts also training how to fight inside a tunnel. It's something we need to do. And I think that when we started the ground incursion, everybody was really worried. What will happen? How do we deal with this? How are we going to deal with this underground capabilities? And we're dealing with them. We are deep in Gaza. We have destroyed more than 150 tunnels, killed all the terrorists inside them. We were able to detect them. We were able to understand what's going on inside them. We were able to destroy them. And we have some serious surprises for Hamas later on, which I cannot elaborate, but rest assured that they are going to be very surprised. And now we are starting to target the really serious big tunnels as we are going into the heart of the headquarters of Hamas in Gaza. This is where really we'll find the big tunnels, and we have the ability to deal with them. It will take time. One of the reasons why the IDF is not operating fast, because maneuver you can do very fast, but it doesn't make sense, because if you go on the ground fast, and then behind you have 500 terrorists inside tunnels that go out in the rear and attack from behind, that's not a good situation. So you need to hold an area, and then you need to find the tunnels underneath it, and then you need to destroy them. And only when you do that, you can move forward to the next place. So this takes a bit of time. This is why the maneuver is not very, very fast as it could have been without tunnels. So we are very, very systematic, and we are learning very fast. I can say that the way the IDF was operating in the first 2 days and the way we're doing it now, we are learning really, really fast. And you can see it even talking about casualties. The first day or two, we had much more casualties. We did some tactical mistakes. We understood it. We learned what to do. And now it's not that it's 0 soldiers killed, but we see that we are really able to do everything much better. We are now in the process of really taking control of the whole northern part of Gaza. This area is the center of government and a very stronghold of Hamas, but this is the smaller part of Gaza. The bigger part is the center and the south. And to really achieve the goals of war, eventually, we'll have to conquer all of Gaza, all of it. And this will take time. And we're in the process of doing so. So, Maurice, if there are questions and so on, I'd be happy to.
So I have a few questions for you, Amir. Explain to us, please, the difference between the means and ways of dealing with them. The difference between the individual attack tunnels, which we've seen, where a terrorist can just pop up out of a little hatch, stick his head up with an RPG and target a tank, as opposed to the wider labyrinth where the command centers are and where we assume the hostages are being held. What's the difference in, as much as you can say, tactics as to dealing with those different types of tunnels? As you already said, 150 tunnels have already been destroyed. Are those the smaller tunnels, the bigger tunnels? Those are the tactical tunnels, or the strategic tunnels, we can call them?
So when you talk about, first of all these tunnels are defensive in nature. Okay? Yes, they pop up and shoot, but it's part of the defense. It's not an offense. Offensive tunnels are the tunnels that cross into Israel. This is offense. Now they're on defense. And you have tactical tunnels that enable the company or battalion Hamas commander to really control an area, to move from one place to the other with its forces, to pop up in houses or in fields, attack and go back down. And this is the tactical tunnels. So when we find something like that, you have a choice. You can either just explode the entrance and block it, and then they cannot pop up, simply bury them inside. You can decide to really destroy the whole tunnel. It doesn't make much sense to go inside if you are not rescuing people or something like that. It's better to simply explode the tunnel and kill everybody inside and not go inside. And this is basically what the ground forces are doing as we speak. But at a certain stage, they will arrive to the strategic tunnels. They're simply deeper, bigger. It's headquarters, centers of command, and so on. The question is whether there are hostages or not there. And these are places that we might need to also go in and fight, or in some cases, destroy them completely, and we have the ability to do that. If we know that there are no hostages, we can really destroy the whole compound, and we have our techniques. And this has to do with intelligence and understanding what's going on. Now, if we have a section of tunnel where there are hostages, we'll have to surround this place to control all the entrances. And then, as we do when you have a hostage situation, negotiate. Say to the terrorists, listen, guys, it's over. We conquered everything. We killed all your commanders. We are holding the area. We have time. And eventually you run out of food, water, and oxygen possibly. And if you release the hostages. We let you live. And I'm sure that we'll reach the point where we have this kind of negotiations, as we did, by the way, in the 7th of October, not underground, but in apartments in Sderot or in a kibbutz where some terrorists took hostages. It's not different dealing with this hostage situation in an apartment or in a tunnel, apart of the fact that it's underground.
You mean that you can control?
So we'll get to this point.
That assumes, Amir, that you can control all of the entrances and exits, which are in the tunnel labyrinth under Gaza. I don't know to what extent that is possible, because from my understanding, the activities of the IDF at the moment are concentrated, as you said before, to Gaza City and its surroundings. Do we know whether there are tunnels that link the north to the south? Because, as we know, the IDF has been asking the civilians to leave the northern area of the Gaza Strip. We saw yesterday tens of thousands of Palestinian civilians really moving down. Do the terrorists have that same ability to move underground? And so we might get to the tunnels, the whole tunnel labyrinth in the northern section of Gaza and find that they're empty and they've been abandoned. How much?
This is why we need to conquer the whole Gaza Strip. But what will happen is we'll destroy really the main stronghold of Hamas in the north. We'll uncover all the underground structure, and then we'll have to start moving south. Now, when we'll move south, it will be interesting because we told the citizens to go south. Now, 900,000 of them already went south, and now more and more are going, and eventually they'll all be south, because I don't think anything will be left in Gaza City. When we'll explode all the tunnels, the whole city will collapse. And then we'll start maneuvering south. And then the question is, what do we do with all these people? One idea is that we can take the whole 2 million and put them in the area which was Gush Katif, El Mouassi shore in the south. And while doing that, conquering Deir Balach, Khan Yunis, Rafah, and all of that. I think that the solution is letting people go out to the Sinai Peninsula, because this is really the safe place they can be in. And Egypt is making life hard. It doesn't want people to go out, only people who are injured, which are also tens of thousands. But there might be a situation where the society will storm the border and just go out in an uncontrolled way. I think that the world needs to pressure Egypt to do it in a controlled way and let the people out. For some reason, the Palestinians are the only society where the world decides for them what's good for them. Nobody's asking them. I believe that hundreds of thousands want to go out, but nobody's asking them. In Ukraine,
also doesn't accept and doesn't take in.
Sorry?
They're also the only people who are in a warlike situation where they could clearly be defined as refugees, and the world is refusing to take them in, including
it's
allowing them refuge.
It's unbelievable. In Ukraine, 12 million people left Ukraine. Nobody stopped them. Nobody told them you are not allowed to cross a border. In Syria, Turkey took in millions. Lebanon also. Jordan also. So here we have a Egyptian president who is basically saying to the Palestinians, die in Gaza. I'm not letting you in. I don't understand how the world is agreeing to this. It's unbelievable. We need to let them go out. They are refugees, and we need to let them go out to the Sinai Peninsula in an area which is safe for them, and when they can get food, medicine, water, everything they need.
So one of those subjects, Amir, is that the IDF spokesman on the 26th of October confirmed that there are also tunnels coming from Egypt into Gaza. The suggestion there was that those tunnels had been used for all types of things. We won't get into that now, but they're definitely being controlled by the Gazan side and the Egyptian side. How much do we know? could those tunnels also be used by the Gazan civilian population to flee into Egypt?
They might use it. You know, we saw the endless amount of weapons that Hamas possesses. All of them came from Egypt. All of them. Iranian weapons that have been smuggled through Egypt. There are hundreds of tunnels underneath, even tunnels that can smuggle cars. So yes, people might go out also from tunnels, but also from above, from the fence. And I feel that this is imminent. I mean, eventually this is what's going to happen, and whether we are doing it in a fashionable way or
Just to get that,
when the artillery, the tanks, the air force is going to attack the south, and we are going to advance, people are going out.
Just to give our audience an idea, Amir, I read a report recently that said that Egypt in 2013 had actually destroyed 1,900 tunnels coming from Egypt into Gaza, and backwards and forwards, sometimes blowing them up, sometimes just filling them with raw sewage. Later on, they found more tunnels. They destroyed a few of those. In the last few years, there have been reports that the tunnels had reopened predominantly as a way to smuggle goods into the Gaza Strip and avoid the Hamas taxation. Hamas obviously got annoyed with that, found the tunnels and has been using them and abusing them. But that's something which is obviously of concern. I just want to, if I may, Amir, just 2 more minutes of your time, just to give an explanation, or a wider explanation of what you said before, in context. The last few days there has been mounting calls and pressure on Israel to declare a ceasefire, and to declare a humanitarian pause. What, if I understand correctly, and here I would just like you to give our audience really that expert military point of view. The IDF forces are now operating in the Gaza Strip. They are uncovering hundreds of tunnels. They are engaged in hand-to-hand fighting all the time. What would it mean to suddenly stop for 12 hours, for 24 hours, while the soldiers are deep within enemy territory? How much would that expose them? What would that mean operationally for our forces? And is that really an option that we should even entertain, or just out of hand reject?
We have to reject it completely. It will endanger our soldiers dramatically. This is something we cannot accept. It doesn't make sense. Now we are pressuring the enemy. We are not letting him to get organized. And if we stop, the Hamas will organize and attack us. We'll do a counter-attack that will result with many soldiers killed. We need to first completely destroy the strongholds of Hamas in the Gaza City. Once we gain control of Gaza City, and it will take also time to clean all this area, then I would say we have some window of time, if there is a need at all for a ceasefire, which I'm not sure there is a need. We have to remember, all the citizens are in the south. We are not operating in the south. They are getting everything they need, all the humanitarian aid. So what is the ceasefire for? It's not clear what they want. Why do we need a ceasefire? Now, if it's they say, listen, give us a few hours and we'll release 50 hostages, the women, the children, okay, that makes sense, but only after we destroy the strongholds. But if this is not the case, this will endanger our soldiers, and we must not do it. Every time we did it in the past, soldiers were all killed or kidnapped. We cannot allow that.
And we have to just also remind everyone that as of the 6th of October, 2023, just 34 days ago, there was a ceasefire in place, which was breached by Hamas. And so when Israel is dealing with these questions and the demands of the Secretary of State Blinken and even US President Biden, how do you think the best way to respond to those requests are, and really to ensure that we don't get into a situation where we are again endangering our forces and allowing Hamas to take advantage of these breaks?
Sorry, Morris.
Did you hear that, Amir?
No, I couldn't hear you. Sorry.
Sorry. So my question was, to what extent are we explaining to the American administration, to President Biden, to Secretary Blinken, to even the military administration of the US, that we cannot accept in any way, shape, or form a pause at the moment, definitely not a ceasefire at the moment, because that would simply endanger our forces and would be, as you said, counterproductive. The humanitarian needs are being met, and so why is that so difficult for our American counterparts to understand?
I don't even know if they mean it seriously. I mean, I think that we're into the elections here, and you know that many of the supporters of Biden are supporters of the Palestinians, and he's getting attacked, and the numbers, when you look at the polls, are not really great. And he needs to say the right thing for his voters. And we need to understand this need and understand that America is going to elections. And agree to what we agree and not agree to what we cannot agree. We are not going to endanger our soldiers. That's it. We're not going to endanger our soldiers.
From a clearly military point of view, I understand your position is very clear. Any ceasefire, any halt in our defensive acts following the September, the October 7 massacre would be detrimental and dangerous both for our forces and for Israel.
Yeah, definitely. We have to be very strong on this and make sure that we can achieve our military goals. I think that the administration also wants us to destroy Hamas. They have no interest in seeing us not winning decisively, because if we don't win decisively against Hamas, this will impact the whole Middle East. Even if we do, it will also impact the Middle East, but positively for the US. So in this sense, I think we all understand that Israel must win decisively. We need to destroy them completely, all of them. We need to kill all the terrorists. We need to dismantle all the infrastructure. And we need to make sure they never, ever again are able to build these capabilities.
Amir, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your really invaluable insight. We're going to let you go there, and we will close our briefing for today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We will be back again. I doubt that just an update. I don't think we will have a broadcast tomorrow, Friday. It's getting Shabbat in Israel is getting earlier and earlier. So there isn't really time to give a proper update at a time that's relevant for also for our American audience. So we thank you. We will see you again on Sunday at 4 o'clock Israel time. In the meantime, keep safe.